When it comes to protecting your peace, your energy, and your personal power, there is no room for compromise. Today, we're going to confront the behaviors that quietly drain your confidence, undermine your boundaries, and chip away at who you are. These toxic patterns don't just happen. We allow them when we're not alert, when we doubt ourselves, or when we assume people will change on their own. But here's the truth. Your life only expands when your standards do. And the moment you decide not to tolerate certain behaviors, you immediately shift from surviving to leading your life. So in this talk, we're diving into the 6 toxic behaviors that you must recognize, call out, and eliminate without apology. Because you deserve a life built on respect, strength, and absolute clarity. Protecting your boundaries at all costs is not about being harsh, cold, or unapproachable. It's about honoring the limits that keep you mentally strong, emotionally stable, and fully aligned with the life you want to build. People often forget that boundaries are a form of self-respect. They signal to the world what you will allow, what you will reject, and what you absolutely refuse to sacrifice. When you don't establish them clearly, others fill in the gaps for you, and they rarely choose in your favor. That's when resentment, frustration, and emotional exhaustion begin to creep into your life. Boundaries aren't walls, they are filters that determine what gets access to you. Without them, everything, every opinion, every demand, every emotional weight comes crashing in. With them, you create a space where only what is healthy, respectful, and aligned can stay. It's important to understand that people will test your boundaries, sometimes intentionally, and sometimes simply because they're used to taking more than they should. The moment you enforce a boundary, you reveal who respects you and who only respects what you provide. Some people won't like your limits because they benefited when you had none. When you start saying no, when you start refusing disrespect, or when you stop allowing someone to drain your time and energy, they will react, and that reaction is information, valuable information. It shows you exactly how they view you and whether they deserve a place in your life. Protecting your boundaries requires clarity. You must know what behaviors drain you, what interactions trigger discomfort, and where your emotional, physical, and mental limits truly lie. If you don't know what your boundaries are, you cannot expect anyone else to respect them. People won't magically guess what hurts you or what crosses a line. You teach people how to treat you, moment by the way you respond to their behavior. The stronger you become, the less you tolerate anything that compromises your peace. But boundaries don't work if they're only spoken. They work when they're enforced. That is where most people struggle. They fear upsetting others, being judged, or coming across as rude. Yet the truth is that the moment you choose other people's comfort over your own well-being, you lose control of your life. Enforcement doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be a calm, firm "I'm not available for that," or "this doesn't work for me," or "I won't continue this conversation" if it becomes disrespectful. The power isn't in shouting the boundary, it's in holding it, consistently, every single time it's tested. When you protect your boundaries, you protect your energy. You stop over-explaining, you stop absorbing other people's chaos, you stop allowing toxic behaviors to slide just to keep the peace. And ironically, the moment you become more protective of your own space, you gain more peace than you ever had before. Boundaries free you from the emotional load of constantly trying to please people who will never be satisfied. They give you room to breathe, think clearly, and invest your time in relationships that actually nourish you. Protecting your boundaries also means letting go of the guilt that comes with putting yourself first. Especially if you've spent years being the dependable one, the fixer, the person who shows up even when you're exhausted. You must remind yourself that your worth is not measured by how much you tolerate. Your strength is not defined by how much pressure you can absorb. Your value is not determined by how well you carry other people's responsibilities on your back. Boundaries shift the balance. They remind you that your well-being matters just as much as anyone else's, and sometimes even more. Never negotiating with disrespect is one of the strongest principles you can build your life around, because the moment you allow even a small trace of disrespect, you teach others exactly how low the bar can go when dealing with you. disrespect rarely shows up all at once. It creeps in quietly, a sarcastic comment meant to belittle, a dismissive tone aimed to undermine, a subtle boundary violation that you brush off because you don't want to make things awkward. The danger is in the toleration. Every time you excuse it, rationalize it, or convince yourself it's not a big deal, you open the door for more. Disrespect grows in environments where it is not confronted, and the people who benefit from disrespecting you will always push until you push back. Refusing to negotiate with disrespect means refusing to enter conversations, relationships, or dynamics where your value is questioned or minimized. It means that the moment someone speaks to you in a way that erodes your self-respect, you do not try to argue with them, prove yourself to them, or convince them to treat you better. You simply remove yourself from the discussion or from their access to you entirely. When someone disrespects you, they're not making a mistake, they're revealing their character, and your response should reveal yours. Strength isn't shown by engaging with disrespect, it's shown by refusing to entertain it. Many people tolerate disrespect because they fear conflict. They fear being misunderstood, labeled difficult, or losing a relationship they believe is important. But staying silent in the face of disrespect doesn't save relationships, it destroys you. You shrink, you doubt yourself, you begin to accept treatment that you would never tolerate for someone you love, and the more you allow it, the more disrespect becomes normalized. Eventually, you find yourself navigating conversations where you're walking on eggshells, adjusting your behavior to avoid triggering someone else's poor behavior. That is not connection, that is control. And the only way to break that pattern is to stop negotiating with people who benefit from disrespecting you. Standing firm against disrespect requires internal clarity. You must know your worth so deeply that no one's tone, words, or actions can make you question it. Some people use disrespect intentionally to gain leverage. They undermine you so they can feel superior. They mock you to test your reactions. They speak harshly to see if you will shrink or bend. They talk over you, dismiss you, interrupt you, or make jokes at your expense, not because they are unaware, but because they're checking where your limits are. When you do not push back, they learn you have none. When you address it calmly and firmly or walk away immediately, they learn something even more important. You're not someone who tolerates disrespect under any circumstances. To refuse negotiating with disrespect also means not disrespecting yourself. That includes shutting down the voice in your own mind that tells you to accept less, that whispers excuses for someone else's bad behavior, or that convinces you to stay quiet because you don't want to make things worse. Things are already worse when disrespect is present. Speaking up doesn't create the problem, it exposes the problem, and once you expose it, you decide what happens next. Either the person corrects their behavior and meets you with a level of respect you deserve, or they reveal that their presence in your life was never healthy to begin with. The moment you stop negotiating with disrespect is the moment you reclaim your power, you stop bending, you stop justifying someone's mistreatment just because you care about them or because you don't want to seem confrontational. You choose yourself, your dignity, and your emotional stability over temporary comfort. You show others that access to you is a privilege, not a guaranteed right. And once you embody that standard, your entire environment shifts. Better people enter, unhealthy people leave, and you begin to live in a reality built on respect rather than survival. Silence is power when used intentionally because it forces the world around you to slow down, pay attention, and reveal itself. Most people panic in silence. They rush to fill the gap with explanations, excuses, or emotional reactions they later regret. But the person who can stay composed, quiet, and observant in the moments when others crumble becomes the one who controls the pace, the tone, and the direction of the interaction. Silence is not emptiness. It is strategy, strength, and discipline. It is the refusal to hand your emotional state over to someone who wants to provoke you. It is choosing to listen more deeply so you can see the truth beneath what is being said. Intentional silence exposes people. When you don't rush to respond, they reveal their motives, their insecurities, or their agenda. They start explaining themselves more than they intended. They overtalk. They slip up. They show you who they really are. Silence creates space, and in that space, truth comes to the surface. People often underestimate how much information someone will give away if you simply wait. Not arguing, not interrupting, not defending yourself, just watching. That is power. Not the loud kind, but the kind that allows you to navigate relationships, conflicts, and difficult conversations with precision rather than emotion. Using silence intentionally does not mean being passive or dismissive. It means being deliberate. You choose when to speak and, more importantly, when not to. Instead of reacting instantly to criticism or confrontation, silence gives you room to think. It protects you from being manipulated by pressure, urgency, or guilt. It keeps you in control of your narrative. When someone tries to provoke you, your silence denies them the satisfaction. When someone tries to make you defend yourself unnecessarily, your silence communicates that you don't validate the accusation. When someone tries to dominate a conversation, your silence holds the line until their noise exhausts itself. Silence is also a form of boundary. It communicates that you're not available for arguments that lead nowhere, that you won't be drawn into chaos, and that your energy is not up for negotiation. Most importantly, it communicates self-respect. You don't need to shout to be understood or prove your worth to be valued. The more comfortable you become with silence, the stronger your presence becomes, because people can feel when someone is rooted, calm, and not easily pulled out of their center. Silence becomes your shield, your clarity, and your weapon when necessary. Silence forces others to recalibrate. When someone speaks to you disrespectfully and you don't react, they feel the weight of their own behavior. When someone tries to manipulate you with emotion and you stay silent, their tactic loses its power. When someone expects you to crumble or chase or explain, and you remain quiet, they lose the control they assumed they had. Silence is not weakness. Weakness is being unable to stop yourself from responding. Strength is being able to choose when your voice is worth using. Intentional silence can also deepen your understanding of people. You notice what they avoid saying, where their convictions shift, how they respond when they're not being validated. You see patterns, you see inconsistencies, you see truths that would remain hidden if you rushed in to speak. Silence sharpens your perception. It teaches you to read body language, tone, hesitations, and emotions that words try to mask. It makes you a better judge of character and a more grounded version of yourself. There is also a form of silence that protects your peace. You don't have to explain your boundaries to everyone. You don't have to justify your decisions or argue your perspective. Sometimes silence is simply choosing not to participate in a conversation that drains you. It is stepping back instead of stepping into conflict. It is letting someone else's noise stay theirs. Using silence intentionally means knowing that not every comment deserves a response, not every conflict deserves your energy, and not every person deserves access to your voice. Self-respect sets the tone for every relationship because the way you treat yourself becomes the standard for how others treat you. People are constantly observing how you speak about yourself, how you carry yourself, and how you react to mistreatment or discomfort. They watch how quickly you forgive disrespect, how easily you abandon your own needs, or how firmly you hold to your principles. Every choice you make communicates something. Self-respect is not just an internal belief, it's a signal broadcast to the world, showing others what is acceptable and what is not. When you truly value yourself, your relationships begin to reflect that value back to you. When you have strong self-respect, you naturally gravitate toward people who treat you with care, clarity, and consistency. You don't tolerate confusion disguised as affection. You don't chase validation. You don't cling to people who give you crumbs of attention. Instead, you move towards relationships that feel balanced and grounded. And the moment something feels off, a dismissive comment, a broken promise, a shift in tone, you address it directly instead of pretending not to notice. People who don't respect themselves often ignore red flags because they fear losing someone. But when you respect yourself, you fear losing your peace more than losing a person. Self-respect also influences how you communicate. When you believe in your worth, you speak with clarity and confidence. You don't apologize for having needs. You don't downplay your emotions to keep someone else comfortable. You don't hesitate to ask for what you deserve. And when someone pushes back or tries to make you feel guilty, you don't crumble. You hold your ground not out of ego, but out of alignment with who you are. This steadiness creates a different dynamic, one where people cannot manipulate you with silence, pressure, or emotional games. One of the most powerful aspects of self-respect is the way it establishes consequences. When someone crosses a line, you don't simply state your discomfort, you act on it. You leave the situation, you reduce access. You change the level of intimacy, you adjust your expectations. This doesn't require a dramatic confrontation. It can be calm, quiet, and decisive. The strength lies in the follow-through. Without consequences, boundaries become suggestions. With consequences, boundaries become unshakable. People learn very quickly how far they can go with someone who respects themselves and how far they cannot. Self-respect also means refusing to betray yourself for the sake of belonging. It means no longer shrinking your personality to fit into someone else's comfort zone, no longer tolerating emotional crumbs because you hope someone will eventually treat you better, and no longer abandoning your own worth just to keep a relationship alive. When you hold on to your self-respect, you stop settling, you stop negotiating with behavior that diminishes you. You stop giving second, third, and fourth chances to people who repeatedly show you they cannot meet you where you stand. Self-respect influences the energy you bring into every interaction. When you value yourself, you carry yourself differently, not with arrogance, but with grounded confidence. People feel it. They sense when someone is rooted in their identity. They sense when someone will not tolerate mistreatment or manipulation. They sense when someone knows exactly what they bring to the table. That presence alone changes how people approach you. They become more mindful, more respectful, and more intentional because they know you're not someone who entertains anything less. And the truth is, when your self-respect is strong, you would rather be alone than connected to someone who diminishes you. That choice alone sets a tone so powerful that the wrong people fall away and the right people rise to meet you. Walking away the moment your values are violated is one of the purest demonstrations of strength, self-awareness, and personal discipline. Values are not just ideas you talk about, they are the foundation of who you are. They shape the way you think, the way you love, the way you work, and the way you build relationships. When someone crosses a line that touches your core values, they're not just disrespecting you, they're challenging the very principles that define your identity. And the moment you hesitate, justify, or overlook that violation, you begin to weaken your own internal structure. You start bending into shapes that don't belong to you, and once you bend for the wrong person or the wrong situation, you start telling yourself a story that betrays your truth. Walking away is not about punishment. It's about protection. It's about refusing to remain in a space where your integrity, honesty, loyalty, or humanity is being compromised. Too many people stay in situations that violate their values because they hope things will change. They minimize the red flags, ignore the uneasy feelings, or convince themselves that it's just a phase. But when you stay after your values have been crossed, you silently agree to the violation. People repeat what you permit. And once you give someone permission to dismiss your values, they will keep pushing until you no longer recognize the person you were before you compromised. The moment your values are violated, something inside you reacts, that internal signal that says, "This is not okay." That moment matters. It's a point of clarity, a point of truth, and you must act on it quickly, firmly, and without self-doubt. If honesty is your value and someone lies repeatedly, you don't try to mold them into someone they're not. If loyalty is your value and someone betrays you, you don't negotiate for scraps of faithfulness. If respect is your value and someone consistently dismisses you, you don't train them to see your worth. You leave, not because walking away is easy, but because staying would cost you something much bigger. People often struggle to walk away because they fear the loss. They fear being alone, being misunderstood, or being judged. They cling to potential instead of reality, but the truth is, the more you hold on to something that violates your values, the more you disconnect from yourself. Walking away is not losing, it is choosing. You choose your peace, you choose your dignity, you choose your mental clarity, you choose to stand with the person you must live with for the rest of your life yourself. Walking away also teaches others exactly where you stand. It sends a message that you are not someone who tolerates disrespect dressed up as love, manipulation disguised as care, or inconsistency sold as just how I am. When you walk away, you show people that access to you is earned through alignment, not accidents. And that message changes how the right people show up in your life. They become more intentional, more respectful, more aware because they know you won't stick around in spaces that violate who you are. Your values are your compass. When you honor them, life becomes clearer, decisions become simpler, relationships become healthier. You stop feeling lost because you're no longer operating against yourself. And yes, walking away may hurt in the moment. It may feel heavy, heartbreaking, or unfair, but the pain of leaving is nothing compared to the long-term destruction of staying tied to something that destroys your integrity. Each time you walk away from a situation that violates your values, you strengthen your inner foundation, you build trust with yourself, you deepen your self-respect, and you tell the world without raising your voice that your values are non-negotiable.